Sit!
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
It's going good over here. Garrett's not here today. Yeah. He's out. He'll be back next week, which is, it's a kickoff of the rookie season. This is where we talk rookies.
It is, man. Can't stop, won't stop.
No, a lot of film in our futures, and this wasn't the funnest one.
No.
2 reasons why: not a strong class,
right,
and it had the longest tape.
Quarterback tape is the longest. I was going to ask you how you're feeling after 1 week of grinding those QB tapes.
Well, I mean, some of these guys, you don't have to watch a whole lot to see what's going on. You get 2 games in, you spend about 25 minutes, and you're like, I've seen an okay amount here. So I'll watch just as much tape probably now as we get into the running back class, which is going to be dope. Like, I know I'm going to watch it starts tomorrow. I'll be watching tape all day tomorrow. So diving into Ashton Genty, I'll watch all that tape. So it's okay. Like, it wasn't as bad. It's a fresh start. So it just feels good to be watching tape again.
It does feel good. I'm with you there. I think it's usually right around that second or third show, the wide receivers, that I start feeling like, oh man, this is starting to feel like a grind. But maybe it'll probably become a little bit earlier since there's so many running backs this year. But I think it's going to be. I think it's to be delayed a little bit because not only is there so many running backs to watch, there's so many good ones. Yeah, maybe.
And that's the thing. I like watching good tape.
Sure.
Like good players, when you find them, you get that like little jolt inside of you. Like, wow, this guy's got a little something. You know what I mean? Like, and everything I've heard from trusted sources of like how deep this running back class is, and from what I already know, like it's gonna be exciting to watch some of these guys that I know their name already. But I haven't watched their tape. So I'm like, I'm actually like excited. So every running back, there's so many of them. I get to their name, I'm like, oh wow,
I'm getting pumped. I mean, Garrett. Yeah, right. Garrett. Every time we talk to him, he seems to drop a new name of a guy that he's watched because he's ahead of us on the running backs. He started there, so I am excited to kind of get into those guys. These quarterbacks, we'll get into it, but there's some interesting guys, and there's some guys that are going to be backups.
A lot of backups. Yeah. Some won't even be in the league.
I mean, I think the guys we're talking about today should most of them should land on.
I think the guys we're talking about today, 5 out of 6 should be in the league.
Right.
We'll talk about another one who probably, we'll see, possibly. People like young guys. So we are talking about the 2025 rookie quarterbacks. That's how we kick off the year. We do this quarterbacks first. One is because it's a combines this week. So we don't have the combine numbers. Don't really need the combine numbers necessarily on the quarterbacks. Let the tape do all the talking.
Right. The measurables are the big things. So we'll get that stuff and we'll get it out to everybody. We'll make it a point to talk about their heights and weights and all that good stuff at some point. We do have some of the information just from the Senior Bowl. So
that's how we know Jalen Milroe's got the small hands.
Right.
Under 10 inches. So, this quarterback as a whole. So as we get into this, when you look at quarterbacks, you're mostly looking at this as from a super flex standpoint. In a 1 QB, you're not touching any of these guys probably till the 3rd round at best. So looking at it from a super flex standpoint, if you need a quarterback, well, unfortunately, this isn't the best year. Why? Because my Cleveland Browns had the number 2 overall pick and they need a quarterback. And anytime they need a quarterback, outside of Baker Mayfield year, there's usually not one there to be had that's worthwhile.
It's the way the cookie crumbles, my man.
Yeah. Why can we have the number 2 pick last year? And we get my guy Jaden Daniels, and I'm running around talking about Jaden Daniels is the greatest quarterback of all time instead of Baker Mayfield. So with this quarterback, we'll dive into it. It's not, when people say it's a terrible quarterback class, these guys are not terrible. Some of these guys are not terrible. And if you're in a situation and you have a pretty high draft pick in your super flex draft, I will say I'm totally comfortable with how strong this running back class is in tight end class. If you want to bypass the quarterback, where we preach take the quarterback, I'm totally comfortable doing these guys, right? From like where I vision their ceiling at, like I'm visioning these guys at like Jared Goff, Geno Smith kind of ceilings, which, is still valuable. And I want to start there where like, if you need a quarterback and you have and you're still in your first round and you need a quarterback, And anybody who gets top 10 draft capital or first round capital too, like you still want to take one of these guys.
You're right. Yeah, we talked about it, right? I mean, on the last show, we even revisited those numbers. Basically, all these guys passed the test as far as games played in the NFL. There's all of these guys have I mean, in college football prior to coming to the NFL. So if they get that top 10 draft capital or even any sort of first round draft capital, there's a 50-50 chance of them actually having success from a fantasy perspective.
From a hit rate, which would be a quarterback one hit rate. And what you have to remember is when you talk about the quarterback position in fantasy and Superflex, it is still the highest scoring position in the game, right? If you take quarterback 18 last year, which was a mid-range quarterback too, he was the 54th highest scoring player in PPR leagues. 54th. Yeah. So that is 18 quarters. So half of the top 54 players, essentially not half, but pretty close to it, are quarterbacks. So even if one of these guys turn into just a mid-range quarterback 2, you still have a home run on your hands when it comes from fantasy football output.
For Superflex.
For Superflex. Yeah. So if you need a QB2 or a QB1, and this is the best you can get, it will still put up the numbers that you need for success, right? From the pocket passers. And we don't have a big time. The guys that I consider quality quarterbacks that I'd want to draft, none of them are rushers, which also pushes them back down the stat. Now, they're all not like, Clayton Tune or something like that, where they're cemented into the ground. They can move, but
Clayton
that's definitely
Tune, pulling a name.
That's not their high mark.
Right.
Like Jackson Dart can run fine. Cam Ward can move outside of pocket. Shedeur can move outside of pocket. Will Howard can move outside of pocket. But all these guys look to throw first, and even when they do run, it's not like it's like electric. By any means.
No. When most of these guys are running, and we'll talk about them. When we're going over these guys, a lot of them, they could run for a first down if the defense forgets about them. You know what I mean? Like one of those things, or if they escape the pocket and there's no one around. But there are a couple of guys that do have some rushing upside, but there's other question marks, of course.
Oh yeah, like the Riddler. They're walking around with that outfit on. That's how many question marks they have going on there. So, but let's just dive into it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We have 12 quarterbacks to talk about over the next 2 days. We're going to do 6 today, 6 tomorrow, how we usually do. Tomorrow, next week, we'll start the rookie running back breakdown. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We will do, I think, about 5 shows on the running backs, I believe, somewhere around there. So we have a lot of running backs to talk about.
Yeah.
A lot.
So
first quarterback off the board we're going to talk about is Cam Ward, quarterback out of the University of Miami, 6'2", 222 pounds, 5th-year senior. And when you look at Cam Ward's story, this is something that one of the things that does excite me about Cam Ward. This is a guy who was a 0-star recruit that went to becoming a Heisman finalist. If you don't know his story, this is a kid from Texas, playing that wing tee offense there where they barely throw the football. Had no 0-star recruit, goes out, plays at Incarnate Ward, torches FCS defenses, plays really well there, transfers to Washington State, plays really well there. After Washington State, Cam Ward decided he was going to enter the NFL draft.
So that was 2 years and then 2 years, right? Is that correct? Or 1 year and then 2 years?
I thought it was 1 year and
1 year at the FCS and then 2 at the Washington State. Sorry, I just don't have
3. Was it 3?
It's just 2 at Washington State for sure.
2. Then maybe it was 2 because he only played 1 year at Miami.
Yep.
So, and he's a 5th-year senior. So maybe it was 2 at Incarnate Ward. So he tries to enter an NFL draft after playing at Washington State, which he played really well. Gets a grade back that he's going to be a 3rd-day grade. He's like, well, forget this. I'm up my game. I'm going to show that I belong. And he transfers to the University of Miami, played SEC. He goes there and he wins.
Yep.
He plays very well. He's a Heisman finalist. So this isn't somebody who's just a quarterback that gets out there and just abracadabra. Like he worked really hard to get where he was, right? And he dominated every single year. And that's one of the tributes of Cam Ward that I hear and I've studied on is this is the first guy in, last guy out, right? And you hear that saying, and people are like, oh yeah, the quarterback first in, last out. Well, not everybody's like that, right? Like a lot of people like that. We had a quarterback that we drafted in the first round. And he was the last one in, first one out, hiding out in Vegas.
He was the first one. He was the first one to the party and last one to leave the party.
Yeah, I know because I know people that were at the party. So that's huge. Cam Ward, everything you read about him, he's all about ball, nothing else. And he wants to get better. Like he wants to do good. So he's a very coachable player, which is good because he needs some work a little bit. Like he has some stuff he can work on. But when you talk about arm talent, he's got it, man. He's got a little bit of electricity going behind that arm, and he's got a good cannon for an arm. You know, this guy who can zip the ball 55 yards downfield if he really wants to, and he's got the velocity. He anything that you want him to do from throwing the football, he can. But he's like all over the place. Do it. I mean, his arm angles are everywhere.
So I mean, he has a traditionally, I think if he was to just throw the ball, he'd be a 3/4 thrower, right? I don't think he ever comes fully naturally all the way over the top. And there are times when that thing goes all the way down to a straight sidearm throw. So I think it kind of all depends on what's there in front of him, how quickly he needs to get rid of the ball, where his feet are. So he's an odd one to watch on tape for me because he's one of these guys. I mean, it's always in a shotgun, like most offenses nowadays in college, always in the shotgun. He's got like 1 foot kind of already back, and he's already, so like some guys line up, they're straight up, right? I mean, both their feet are just right underneath them. Their base is kind of solid, and they start their drop. He's kind of already got 1 foot back. Like he knows, like I got to get to this back spot quickly. Yeah. I got to get rid of this ball. And it brings up questions whenever guys have like that already kind of in their brain. It brings up questions in my mind about, can this dude operate from under center and get to his spot quick enough that he's already in shotgun. He's got 1 foot back, and he, you know what I mean? These are the kind of questions that I see, or I have when I see guys that are like that. Cause he doesn't have the quickest feet. He's rarely throwing off a nice solid base.
That was one thing I saw that really aggravated me the most about it, is like, I almost like it's 50-50 where he's throwing off like a legit base. And what's crazy is like, he made it work a lot of times. Like there's so many times I saw him like throw, I swear one time I didn't even see him throw, like I didn't even see him throw off his back foot. It was like the back side of his foot, like, cause he moved sideways.
Sure.
And I think he threw the ball under the linebacker's arm. Again, his arm angles are all over the place,
They're
right?
all over the place.
Successfully at times.
At times, but at times not.
At times it is not.
Yeah.
But yeah, like one time I swear I was like, did he roll his ankle there? Like I feel like he threw. It really was like the first thing I noticed. I was like, man, his footwork is all over the place, and he's constantly moving, and he does have success there. I mean, when you look at PFF here, he had the second most big time throws in FBS when holding the ball for 3 seconds or more. Now in NFL, you don't really want to hold the ball that long, but he did have the most. And you're talking about a guy who had 4,313 yards, 39 touchdowns, and only 7 picks.
Right. And so, I mean, for people to, I guess, give people a visual, if anyone can remember Phillip Rivers from a few years back, he looked really awkward throwing the ball, right? I mean,
he threw on his tippy toes a lot, didn't he?
He had the 3/4 inch, or 3/4 delivery all the time, and it just never looked like he was like a pure thrower of the football. But he got the job done, and Phillip Rivers didn't, especially towards the end of his career, didn't have a strong arm. Like he threw with great anticipation. So there's things that I think Cam Ward, needs to work on when he gets to the NFL. And cleaning up his footwork is one of them. And I think that will solve a lot of his issues, because you'll see some of these, anytime you're throwing from an awkward and kind of, non-traditional over the top type of throw, I feel like the ball can die pretty quickly if you don't have a good base. And I saw that on several throws. They just didn't make it to the intended target. And it was, he's falling to the side. He's throwing, this weird 3/4 delivery, and the ball, it has nowhere to go because it's already so low on its trajectory, but down. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really, you have to have a cannon of an arm. I don't think he is a weak armed guy, but he doesn't have a cannon. You know what I mean?
I mean, he could rip it good 25 yards pretty strongly in a tight window.
Yes. When he's got everything working. I'm talking about just straight, you have got a strong arm. You don't need the rest of your body. You've got this cannon for an arm.
To be fair, there's like 6 quarterbacks in the NFL that can there's not a lot of guys that can do that.
Yes, I agreed. But I think those are the guys that get away with some of that sloppiness. and are able to kind of overcome that. So Cam, I don't know that he has got that strong of an arm to be able to do that all the time, which means I think the footwork is that much more essential for him.
Yeah, he plays a little, I mean, he does like to play some hero ball, right? Like he wants to make that big time play, which you got to coach that out of him. And, you know, he'll get out there and it is nice because he tries to read defenses. Like there's like when he played Georgia, like he had some trouble there. Like a really good defense was able to confuse him a little bit there. He makes some nice deep throws. He works the sideline pretty well. Like he could play all three phases of the field. You're right, not the strongest arm, but a good enough arm for sure. Like he could rip the ball. He could let it rip there. And, you know, but he does kind of have that, like that gunslinger mentality, right? Like he's going to get out there and he's going to sling it. And for the most part, it's worked for his career.
Mm-hmm. I mean, 39 touchdowns, 3,313 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It's working for him. You know what I mean? Like he's one of the best passers coming into the draft this year.
Yeah, he needs to work on his accuracy. But again, I think a lot of his stuff can be fixed, which is like working on his base, get him under center. Like I think that's good coaching.
I think the off-target throws are from that. I think that's I'm not a QB coach.
No, it's a hardest position.
But if I am a QB coach, that's where I'm starting with him because the limited amount of knowledge that I have when I'm looking at his off-target throws, he's a mess in his feet. And when he looks good, he's on time and throwing out, you know what I mean? Like in rhythm, he's accurate and he rips the ball pretty good. I just think he needs everything working for all that to happen.
And he's cool, calm, and collective at all times in that pocket too. Like he does not panic.
He doesn't panic. He doesn't look to run. He finds open spaces. You know what I mean? When there's pressure around him, which is great. That's what you want. You know, obviously there's a point in time when there's been a couple times when I was watching his tape, I was like, dude, just take the 7 yards that's in front of you. But he'll like still look downfield and try to make a throw. So,
and you get that a lot out of college kids. Yeah. It's something you can coach out of them. And obviously there's red zone concern. You know, there's a stat out there where he only completed 39% of his passes inside the red zone. That's something you have to work on as well. But he seems like he's a coachable kid. It seems like he does have the talent. And out of all the quarterbacks that I watched, I would say he has probably the highest upside of all the quarterbacks. Like I
totally agree with
that. If I had to take a quarterback, like if you said, Rich, you got to take one of these quarterbacks 1 overall, I think I would be with the consensus. I think the consensus for the most part is pretty right about these quarterbacks out there, where it's like Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward 1 and 2. Like I feel pretty good about that. Yep. And it's like, which one's going to fit your offense? Because they are two completely different quarterbacks. Like completely different quarterbacks, the way they play the game.
They definitely are.
You know, I like the Phillip Rivers kind of comp to Cam Ward.
I just wanted to give a visual, the visual of his arm angle and stuff like that is Phillip Rivers. He's a much better athlete. You couldn't be much of a worse athlete than Phillip Rivers. So I don't want it to sound like he's like running in sand, like Phillip Rivers would be. Just from an arm angle and like just his delivery just looks weird.
No, but when you said that, you're right. Kind of reminded me of that. Phillip Rivers made a ton of those throws that you see Cam Ward make, right? Yep. Like obviously the GOAT at doing that is Pat Mahomes, right? So like you would say like, and I know you said earlier when we were talking about kind of stuff like that, you hate that comp that Pat Mahomes, because when Pat Mahomes came out, that was like one of the knocks on him. Like same they were kind of like knocking Cam Ward for is what we knocked Pat Mahomes for. So like obviously, you know, Pat Mahomes is a GOAT. He's an outlier. So like, but when you talk about like ceilings of people that could do that, like Phillip Rivers, Pat Mahomes, are those kind of players that kind of excelled at that. So that's what Cam Ward could kind of turn into, more of a Phillip Rivers than a Pat Mahomes, because he's one of the probably 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, and I think Phillip Rivers, he didn't have the strongest arm, but he had a strong enough arm, and I feel like that's more Cam. Whereas in
Mahomes got a rocket.
Yeah.
So nice player. Feel pretty comfortable. Like again, he's going to get top 5 draft capital for sure. So in a super flex league, if you need a quarterback, I totally feel comfortable taking Cam Ward. Like I think there's something there. I hope he gets in the right system and the right offense.
And that's what I'm really interested to see who his head coach and offense, whoever's going to be calling plays for him, who that is, and who his quarterback coach is, because that's gonna be a big deal for him, I think, because he has some stuff to work on. Hey, sometimes we'll see stuff on tape I want to say this as well. We'll see stuff on tape in their college season, and by the time they get to the NFL, it's cleaned up. And whether that is, through all these QB coaches and stuff that they do in the offseason, that once they are able to dedicate 100% of their time to just football, they're able to just get better naturally like that. Or if it's the second they get in camp, those QB coaches kind of know how to identify it. The good ones know how to identify it and kind of clean up some things, or a combination of the both. I don't know. I mean, but it sounds like from everything you're saying here with Cam Ward, he has the right kind of attitude and the right kind of coachability to kind of take some of these things that are concerns and kind of turn them from weaknesses into, if not strengths, at least something that isn't a deficiency anymore.
A quality NFL quarterback. And I look at a lot of these guys' ceilings are like slightly above mid-range quarterbacks, right? Like, again, the Jared Goff kind. Like, I love like Shadur Sanders comp of Jared Goff for like kind of a ceiling. I like the Phillip Rivers comp that you know for like a guy like Cam Ward. And listen, this is the one position where like not only do I like to watch tape on these guys, but like I like to read a lot about the quarterbacks, like study, because it's so much more than just a tape that you like the way like the NFL scouts and it's so hard to predict how these guys are going to turn out. Cause like with the right coaching, you can really fine tune a quarterback. Like it's not as easy without every other position. Everybody can get better with good coaching, but like this is make or break and you only have a smaller window to try it out. And listen, we're Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast analysts, right? Like this is what we do. We've had a lot of success, but like we'll always admit when it comes to quarterbacks, like this is the hardest thing for us to really kind of sit here and talk about because it's so much more where like, look what the NFL teams do. They sink millions of dollars, the smartest football minds in the world, and they have a 50-50 chance at this working out as well.
Right. There's just so much. Don't know. There's so much in between the ears that we don't know about, whether that's attitude, whether that's processing. And we don't know 100% what they're being asked to do on every single play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the college level in the tape that we're watching and how that translates to what this new coach is going to be asking them to do on a play.
What system are you in?
Right.
What kind of offensive line do you have? What kind of weapons do you have? Like the quarterback needs a lot of help. There's not a lot of quarterbacks out there in the world, let alone like, or narrow down in the NFL that elevate their team, right? That make everybody better around them, and some people might want to hear this stuff. Philadelphia fans, like I think Jalen Hurts is an above average quarterback. Like I don't think Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback. Like if you took Jalen Hurts off the Philadelphia Eagles and you said, hey, look at all these quarterbacks throw the football and play quarterback. Like I think Jalen Hurts is going to fall outside almost like the bottom of the top 10, somewhere around there, like in that range. Like Justin Herbert in my eyes is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. But now you put Justin Herbert on that team, Jalen Hurts benefits from everything that's around him and the team that they built and the system. And that's no knock on Jalen Hurts because that's what you want your coaches to do. You want your coach to build around that quarterback. They don't want to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
So you need that all to work. Same thing. Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders. Like which one you take one? Which one fits your system better? Right? Like
yeah, and your vision for your offense, basically. I mean, you have to be able to build around these guys and do all that kind of stuff to showcase their talents and and hide their deficiencies, which I think is what you're saying with Jalen Hurts is what they really maximize there in Philadelphia.
100%.
They really boost up everything he does well. They minimize his deficiencies, which certain kinds of throws I think for him are just less consistent, right? I mean, than you'd want from an NFL passer.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not a hater. Like, and I'll admit when I'm wrong too. And like, I did not think Jalen Hurts was going to be a good NFL quarterback. And right after Eagles won, I was at the house here. We had some hanging out. And literally the first words I said were, "Good for Jalen Hurts."
Yeah,
I'm happy for him.
For sure.
He overcame. Same thing. What do you hear? Jalen Hurts first one in, first one out. He works really hard at it, and it showed off. Kid won a Super Bowl. Like, I love seeing guys like overcome. Like, I don't want people to be terrible. Like, I want everybody to find success in life. So like, it's just hard. Like, he worked really hard at it. So like, I'm really happy he proved me wrong. I didn't think he had the arm to have sustained success, let alone to win a Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
No doubt about it. I'm with you. I would have been the same. I'm in the same boat as you as far as pre-draft kind of feelings on Jalen Hurts. I didn't think he was a good enough passer of the football.
And he makes that pass to Devontae Smith to start the third or fourth quarter and end up the pretty much seal the Super Bowl at that point. It was a beautiful, like, kudos to him. You know what I mean? So,
but at the same time, you don't want to build an offense that has him throwing the ball 50 times a game.
100%.
Because that's just not a winning formula.
Work around his strength.
Exactly.
And that's what it is. Like, guys like that, I didn't like Jalen Hurts. I didn't like Josh Allen coming out. You know what I mean? I didn't think he could fix it. Most of those quarterbacks don't fix their inaccuracies. Josh Allen to me is an outlier. You know what I mean? Lamar Jackson was intriguing. And obviously his rushing outside is completely different. So that's why he was a little bit higher, but still it's hard to figure who's going to be good. Again, that's how you end up with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is in the right system for him, where the quarterback, the coaching staff works on where it puts him in the best position, and that's how they win. So who's the next quarterback on the list?
All right, next guy on the list is Jalen Milroe. Alabama quarterback, 6'1.5", 220 pounds. He has 8 3/4 inch hands, according to the Senior Bowl weigh-in stuff. 31 1/4 inch hands, whatever, wingspan, all that stuff doesn't matter. He's 22 years old. Last year at Alabama, he threw for 2,844 yards, passing 16 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. And he had 726 yards rushing, though, and an additional 20 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So this guy is a very, I think, polarizing player, right? I mean,
to me, he's not.
I know he's not a polarizing player to you.
I'm about to go back on everything I just said. Everything I just said, I'm about to do. But I don't. Doesn't mean I don't hope he turns it around. But when you're done, I'm gonna poop.
Just take your poop now, and then I'll get to, because I mean, all right. Let me just get out the quick overlay of how I
cupcake me, baby. Sweeten it up.
No, I want to see Jalen Milroe. Obviously, you see this guy on tape, and I'm first of all looking. I'm like, is this a running back? Is this a X wide receiver?
Watch his LSU tape. You're gonna come away pretty happy.
He is built like 6 foot. Basically 6'1.5", 220 pounds.
He's a linebacker.
He looks like a running back. He looks like a safety. He looks like a big old X receiver playing quarterback. And there are times when he looks great. You watch the Georgia tape where he threw for 374 yards or something like that. 374 yards, and then ran for an additional 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's like the best tape you're going to see of this guy. And he looks fantastic. He's hitting all points of the field. His passes look crisp. There are other games when I feel like I am watching Taysom Hill. And this is a used to be quarterback who plays, halfback half the time and it could split out wide and is this utility player, but he's not a quarterback because he can't hit the broadside of a barn. So he's a very hard guy to nail down for me personally. And if I'm an NFL coach, I don't know how to view this guy. If he's a worker, like we were talking about Jalen Hurts, and he puts in all this time and is a grinder, maybe you can turn him into something, because you're going to have to rework your entire offense. There's no way that this guy, just like we were talking about Jalen Hurts, I think this is like a perfect transition. You're going to have stuff that showcases his run just so you can get a linebacker to always be spying on him, just to make throws easier out in the secondary. You know what I mean? And to make it easier for your running backs. He's that type of weapon with his feet that he can do that. He can suck up linebackers. He can have there could be a spy dedicated to him at all times, but he has to then prove that he can throw the ball. And that's the hard part for me, because he's so inconsistent. If you just watch the Georgia tape, you're like, this dude can do it. And I urge everyone to get in our film room and watch that tape, because you're going to get excited. When you watch all the other stuff, you're going to be confused. And that's how I feel.
There's always, with him, there's moments of excitement. Like I said, you watch him versus LSU outside of the Georgia tape. LSU, 39-yard touchdown run, juke 2 defenders. Same game, he had a 60-yard bomb to Ryan Williams, right? This is... And when I saw his hand size come out, being 8 3/4, like, kind of made sense, right? Like, oh, okay, like that helps with some of his inaccuracies. His hand's kind of small. I can't really like rip the ball like as good.
I mean, there's a lot to be said about hand size and quarterbacks. I don't know how real it is and how much it isn't. Doesn't Joe Burrow also have like really tiny hands or something?
They're not that small.
Okay,
he did have small hands, but I think outside of Joe Burrow, and I only remember this. I could be completely wrong here, so don't fact check me. Just take my word for it. I thought
just take this at face value and don't.
I thought when I was doing the Kenny Pickett study stuff, said like for the most part, guys that have under 9-inch hands almost had like almost a 0%. And while I'm talking, look up. I think let's see if Joe Burrow's over 9 inches. But I thought anyone who had under 9-inch hands like never end up being good ever. Like that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And Kenny Pickett had first round pedigree,
yeah.
right? So, and that's my comp. I've been calling it on the show for a while. I said this is two comps that you do not want. Jalen Milroe is a combination of Kenny Pickett and Anthony Richardson.
According to the NFL.com, he has 9-inch hands, Joe Burrow. So
exactly. So he's not under. I thought it was like under the 9-inch hands kind of.
Sorry, it's apparently started playing stuff.
8 3/4. You know what I mean? Like that's under 9 inches.
I mean, honestly, a quarter of an inch.
Listen,
a quarter of an inch. Who's gonna do? Come on, man.
Listen,
I want to see the real measurements from the combine. Because what if he comes back with the real combine measurements, and now all of a sudden he's got 9-inch hands?
It's still
because all they did was stretch it out all the way.
Okay, hey, maybe
would that make you feel better about him?
No, because his tape is terrible. Like it really is. I mean,
just wanted
look at his SEC stats: 5 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He's got everything. Like I feel like when he gets out, like he gets in, if he can come in, plant his feet, not be rushed, and have a clean, like he could deliver a ball downfield, like okay for like over like 70% of the time, but like and as long as it's his first, like it's his read, he knows exactly where he's going, like it's a scripted play, like you're at like your pro day. I feel like everything outside of that, Jalen Milroe just really starts to fall apart. Like you said, his accuracy is like just bad, like not even like close bad. Like,
I'm trying to think, in my head, how bad was like a Lamar Jackson, for instance?
Lamar Jackson won a Heisman. He was a good quarter. Like he threw a ton of touchdowns.
Yeah, but he used to throw wobblers, ducks.
He did.
And he got rid of that.
His deep ball to be fair, Lamar still throws some deep ball ducks. Like he comes out of there and it's wobbling. Like I think Josh Allen's like I said, Josh Allen was a big running quarterback, strong, but like 55% accuracy. Like some of those, like, so he was the one. And like I said the same thing, like, these guys are like real hard to like fix that. Like, and it is for the most part, guys that are like that, they have a hard time, being corrected.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
And it's not just his accuracy. It's like his decision making. Like I said, once he like loses that first read, like things like get kind of chaotic for him. And yeah, he's a big guy that can run, but like it's not going to really work in the NFL for him. Cause like you could literally said, what do you got to do about bringing that extra safety in the box? Like if I'm playing Jalen Milroe, I'm playing man coverage every single time and daring him to beat me, knowing that I think there's like a 30% chance when he throws the football past, say, if he's gonna go deep, like we're gonna intercept the football.
Let me ask you this: you're gonna go man. They're gonna run 4 wides and empty out everything and have just Jalen Milroe back there, and you're gonna have a linebacker covering Jalen Milroe out of the backfield because that linebacker is gonna get torched.
No, let's bring my safeties in.
Those safeties are gonna be committed to the guys running downfield.
Well, depends on your linebacker. Listen, it's
because he's an athlete, man.
100% he's an athlete, but he's an athlete. One, here's a couple things. I don't think this is gonna be a moot point. I don't think he's gonna even be drafted. I don't think he's gonna draft capital or anything. Right? Like, again, we talk about
what if he goes second
round? I have no interest in Jalen Milroe. I really don't. I don't, because I don't think the way watching his tape, I mean, he has no touch on his ball. I mean, he throws. I've seen, like, I'll see him, like, there'll be a guy at like
he's got a ways to go as a thrower.
The big guy 3 yards out and he's rocking the football to him. You know what I mean? It's just like
agree. Yep.
When I watch Jalen Milroe,
When I watched,
at no point do I see an NFL
when I watch Jalen Hurts, just, you know what I mean? Like there are, I hate to say it, there are a lot of similarities between these guys as far as how I feel about them coming in. And I don't know that I want to make the exact same mistake with another guy that has fantasy upside. You know what I mean? That's what I want to kind of at least keep this guy's hat in the ring, so to speak.
He goes second round. He goes to the Raiders. He's on my board.
What if he goes second round to the Colts? The guys that brought Jalen Hurts into the league and made him successful go to the Colts. They have a disaster of a situation there.
So you bring another disaster.
So they bring in this other guy to compete, and hopefully the best of they get the bet. They don't have to change up the offense for either one of them, and the cream rises to the top here, so to speak.
If they do that, I still won't take him because I believe now they have Anthony Richardson and Jalen Milroe. Anthony Richardson will beat out Jalen Milroe. I feel like.
Do you remember Anthony Richardson throwing the ball last year?
I will take Anthony Richardson over I'll take him over Milroe as an athlete.
No freaking way, dude.
Anthony Richardson's a big guy too.
He's big. He's not an athlete like Milroe. Milroe would dust that dude, man.
Okay, that's fine too. Either way, if those other options,
if Milroe runs, he's going to be a 4.4 guy.
Matt, if those other options, he goes in the second round to the Colts. The Colts will have a top 5 pick next year and draft a quarterback in the top 5 to replace both of them. So no, I don't like him there. Like
I'm trying to work scenarios here that Jalen Milroe isn't just a complete afterthought here, because I think there's something from a fantasy football perspective that's intriguing about him. Would I want him if the Browns drafted him? I would be bummed. You know what I mean? Like I don't want him as my quarterback because there's just so much up in the air. But for a draft pick in fantasy football, he's got the kind of upside that you want. He's going to get you 600 Matt, yards rushing.
Matt, I understand. I am not listen.
Yeah.
Take his athleticism off the table. I understand that. Yeah, that's sweet. I hope they move him to tight end or running back. Then I'll like him. Actually, yeah, I'll prefer him there. Those are his strengths. Everything else, which is playing quarterback, which is what he's going to be asked to do, he's not good at.
I know.
Like,
listen, I know this. I'm trying to be devil's advocate here, and at the same time, there is a sliver of me that doesn't want to just discount Milroe.
Listen, because I understand the enticement of that because he could probably get you some points. That's fine. I don't see any long-term success here. Out of all 12 quarterbacks we watched, he was one of the worst of the 12 I watched. That I had the least amount of fun watching because I don't see an NFL quarterback. I see a really good athlete.
I agreed. He is hard to project as a quarterback, but if an NFL team sees him that way and is willing to let him maybe develop a little bit, I think he could be something. Just because, especially from fantasy football, which is what we're talking about, from a fantasy football perspective, he's interesting. Okay.
Let's move on to another guy that's pretty interesting here. Yep. Guy that I'm actually interested in.
Yeah.
Will Howard, quarterback out of Ohio State, 6'4", 235, coming off a year where he completed 73.1% of his passes, 3,310 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 7 rushing touchdowns. And, this is a prototypical size quarterback, 6'4", 237. He's a bruiser. He's tough. I mean, this is somebody where he had really good players around him.
Yes.
So when you look at players like him, you have to take into account. He had a good offensive line, he had 2 great running backs, and he had 3 really good receivers. And the big thing with Will Howard is what I like to see about him. This was his 1 year at Ohio State, so obviously I watched every snap that he played. Is he got better every single week? Where I looked at Will Howard earlier in the year compared to the end of the year were 2 completely different quarterbacks. And what I like about him is when we talk about mechanics for him, he's a clean quarterback, right? This is the guy who could definitely turn into Brock Purdy in my eyes in the right system. I mean, he's got the same delivery week in, week out. He hits guys that are open. He'll throw a guy open. He's not a magician, right? He's not the magic quarterback, but he's the quarterback with the right system. If you give him the San Francisco and the Kyle Shanahan offense, he could run your offense and execute it. And will he be this high-end quarterback? No, but he's good enough to win. You know what I mean? He's a solid quarterback. He's got the size, he's got the toughness. He could read blitzes, which is nice. I saw him pick some of those up out there. Not the elite athlete, not the strongest arm. Like he's not gonna. Same thing we were talking about. Cam Ward will rip it and hit that 25-yard downfield in the window. Like Will Howard doesn't necessarily have that. Like he has a look of a backup quarterback, but when I look at him and I see him, like what really got me excited is like, do I have the 2024 regular season Will Howard, or do I have the college football playoffs Will Howard?
Right. No, I think even as the year went on, you're watching this guy, he's getting better every single week. I think, from that Oregon loss on is when he, for me, because we were Ohio State fans, we were watching the whole thing. He took off after that and really started playing well. And then the college playoffs, I mean, he was on fire. He looked amazing.
He made a couple throws in the college football playoffs. I literally said, wow, like Will Howard could be an NFL quarterback. Like he totally picked, like in the regular season, I'm like, oh, Will Howard, NFL backup, maybe. You know,
I totally agree.
Crazy.
I went from a guy that, that I wasn't that interested in him for NFL purposes. I was happy that he was Ohio State's quarterback, to a guy that started piquing my interest as the year went on.
And I'm gonna start there because I'm gonna talk Will Howard up a little bit because I think he's gonna go in the second round NFL draft, and I think he does have a chance, right? Like his weaknesses are, again, I mean, he's a little slow, getting into his 3-step drop. Doesn't have a rocket arm. Doesn't use his eyes great, I guess, necessarily to like lock up safeties and things along those lines. But like
manipulating safeties and whatnot.
Yeah. Some of the receivers helped him out at times as well. Like Jeremiah Smith helped him out a couple times.
So that's what makes, I think, an evaluation like this difficult, right? Because, I mean, it's not like he put up bad numbers when he was at Kansas State, but when you have, last year at Kansas State, 2023 at Kansas State, 2,643 yards and 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. This past season at Ohio State, 4,010 and 10 touchdowns. I mean, some of that can be a guy maturing. I think he's 23 now. As you get older, but that's a pretty big jump in weapons as well. And some of that's you want to see that because you want a guy that can get the ball to the weapons.
Yeah.
And obviously he is that guy. And then when you get it out there, they make plays for you.
And I remember there's a player, I can't remember the player who it was, but either last year or before, like, okay, are we getting this player or the player we saw in the playoffs? I can't remember which one it was. And I feel like he ended up being good too. So and what's nice is what I really like here about Will Howard is like, it's not like the old college football playoffs where you just play 2 games. It was it. You had a 2-game stretch. This was a 4-game stretch against the 4 best teams in all of, like, college football.
And you're more or less, I mean, he played 16 games. You're more or less playing a full NFL season at that point.
100%. So when I look at Will Howard, I want to start there because that's how he finished. And it wasn't a small window. Like, so go back and look at those games versus Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame. Will Howard threw for 1,150 yards, 8 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions, completed 75.2% of his passes and completion percentage. That's 287.5 yards per game, folks. And an efficiency, like, dude, that's borderline absurd, right?
Yeah.
Like, he was elite. He was offensive MVP in the title game against Notre Dame. He went 17 of 21 there for 231 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then they started rolling. They started running the ball the second half, right? And then because he had 57 rushing yards there on 16 carries. In the first half, he was 14 of 15 for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. And yes, he's thrown to Jeremiah Smith, maybe the best freshman receiver I've ever seen. Emeka Egbuka, who's a very talented route runner and sure-handed receiver.
Sure-handed as they come and as steady as they come.
Yeah, the 2 running backs we saw. That's like, it's a cheat code out there. And against Tennessee, I mean, he tore them up. 291 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oregon, 65%, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, 12.3 per attempt on attempt. Texas, just getting it done. 300 yards, 1 touchdown, a Tex. And that Texas defense was really good too. And he shredded that defense. And Notre defense, the big thing where I really liked is Notre Dame's defense. Top tier, physical, scheme heavy. They threw a lot of man coverage at him early on, and Will Howard came out and he carved it up. He had a 56-yard pass, Jeremiah Smith on 3rd and 11 late. Really showed some good throw poise in the pocket. So with his size,
showed off his legs a little bit in that game too. 57 yards rushing.
Him and Riley Leonard both.
That was his best, best outage of the year as far as rushing.
Yeah. So game. I mean, people say Will Howard's just a product of the system. And there's definitely some truth there, right? We saw against Michigan, he looked very pedestrian, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I don't know if because of a pressure game. But from a dynasty outlook, this is somebody now, like, I'm somewhat interested. I want to see where he ends up and if he gets an opportunity. Because and I'm just to say now, there's 3 quarterbacks outside the top 2 of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders that I'm interested in. It's Jackson Dart, and he's kind of almost in a tier by himself as the third guy, like clear cut. But outside of that, like it's Tyler Shough and it's Will Howard. Those are other 2 quarterbacks that I'm interested for my Superflex leagues.
I mean, I will throw Jalen Milroe's hat in that ring as well, just because.
I know you would.
Just because there's just too much rushing upside to not. But he's definitely Will Howard is definitely a guy that I'm interested in, and I think one more thing about that like production bump that you have to, I guess, kind of throw into the equation as well. I forgot to mention it. That was by far the best coaching he's ever gotten as well. You know what I mean? And NFL coaching from a guy, Chip Kelly, who's spent time in the NFL and is right back in the NFL right now.
Ryan Day was an NFL quarterback coach.
He absolutely was.
College.
Yeah. So, I mean, Chip Kelly, I think that a lot of the concepts that he runs, obviously he's going to tailor them for college when he's in college. But he's going to be at least getting guys ready to go and make that transition to the NFL. Same thing with Ryan Day. So I think this is, it's good that he got his best coaching and he's had his best performance here in this 1 year with Ohio State. You almost wish that this would have happened a year earlier or 2 years earlier for a guy like Will Howard to really get a good feel for him. But obviously, this is all we got. So we have to go out based off of what we have. So Will Howard, I think, is a nice guy to go. I think, in Superflex, is he going to be a 2nd round draft pick?
This running back class is so deep.
Yeah.
You're going to throw about probably 5 tight ends that are going to get probably the draft capital you really like. You probably got about 15 running backs you're going to like. So that's 20. Sanders and Ward put you right around 22. So Will Howard will probably be most likely for a contender in the right spot. Very end of the 2nd, most likely in the 3rd is where he'll go. I do kind of vision him as like a backup quarterback in the NFL, but like I could definitely see him being on a run heavy scheme with a good coaching staff and a good team around him. I could see him being an NFL starter if he keeps progressing like he did in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, and he's, what is he, 23?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think he's 23.
Yeah, I mean, all these quarterbacks are a little bit older.
Not all of them, but he's 23.
Yeah.
This next guy.
Oh, yeah, he's the oldest.
Yeah, he is the oldest. So,
do you feel comfortable? Is that where you envision Will Howard, like in the late 2nd, 3rd? You feel first of all, are you comfortable drafting in Superflex?
I am comfortable drafting him because I think he's worth a shot.
Yes.
Because I think he throws the ball well enough and he's big enough, and he's got tools. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that he is capable of doing it. Whether or not he takes kind of the necessary next steps, who knows? I think that is yet to be seen, and whoever is coaching him is going to go a long way, and kind of what that scheme is. So I'm with you on. I'm very interested to see where he goes in the fit.
Me too.
For the scheme,
he's got to be the right fit. Again, think like ceiling like a Brock Purdy. It's the best way I can describe it.
Sure, I like that.
All right.
So next guy up, Tyler Shough, Louisville quarterback, 6'4" and 7/8 inches high,
pretty
tall.
much 6'5".
It's basically 6'5".
I wrote down 6'5".
Yeah, I mean you can if you want to round. 224 pounds, 9 3/4 inch hands, Rich. So yeah, he's got it. We mentioned he was a little bit older. He is 25. He'll be 26 at the end of September. So he's been around for quite a while. He spent 3 years at Oregon, 3 years at Texas Tech, and then this past season at Louisville. At Louisville last year, he completed 62.7% of his passes, 3,195 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He offers basically nothing in the rushing game.
He had 2 rushing touchdowns, didn't he?
He had 1, according to my statistics.
Yeah, fake news. Keep going.
Fake news, but completely real news. At least that's how I'm gonna go with it. So I don't know what happened. My notes disappeared on this guy. Literally, I don't know what happened to them. So
I have notes.
Let's hear your notes, and then I'll give you my thoughts based off of what I remember watching.
So Matt said, 26 years old. He's an enigma, right? Like he's got massive injury history as well.
So that was the thing, but nothing crazy, right? I mean, it was a collarbone and then a related shoulder injury the next year, and then he broke his fibula the year after that. So
he breaks things.
He breaks things, which makes me think he should drink more milk.
Definitely. But I mean, the dude's got an arm. Like his arm, he's got one of the best arms in the draft. Like he really does. I mean, this guy can rip it.
He's right.
With a flick of a wrist.
Prototypical 6'5", 225 kind of big, strong quarterback. How about that?
Yeah, I like the way he commands the pocket. I like the way he uses his eyes. Like I like the way he'll go through his progressions. I was watching some tape against I think it was SMU, and same thing. Like he was going through his reads, holding the linebackers there, throwing some deep balls. Had a cannon. He had a 50-yard bomb. I think it was Ja'Cory Brooks against Kentucky. That was really nice. But the thing that sucks with him, though, is like he's got the big-time arm. He's in there. He's in the pocket. He looks really good. When he's in there, he's standing tall. Like, he looks really good. And I don't know if it's because he has so many injuries. The thing that really concerns me, outside of his age, which is 26 years old,
sure.
That's a huge negative in my eyes. You know, Brandon Whedon's younger brother. Is
was Whedon 28?
28. Yeah. Well, like literally, I think he's the second oldest quarterback to ever get drafted
in the first round.
Yeah. So if you focus on Shough's positives, like he looks like a first round quarterback.
Sure.
My concerns with him is,
go ahead. If mine mirror yours, I wouldn't be surprised.
Pressured.
Yeah.
It's all like everything that he does is out the window.
Well, here, let me just say this. Adding to that, he's slow in his drop. He's slow in his release.
I would say he's got a long windup too. Like he's
slow.
Yes. If I got to finish, the next thing said slow release, slow in his drop.
Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like that adds to the pressure part of it. Like if you can't get rid of the ball, and you're a bit of a statue back there, there's going to be issues transitioning to the next level, which is my biggest thing with him, because I think he throws the ball great. I think he does some good things when he's got time, but he's one of these guys that has to have that time,
because he's not mobility.
He's not going to be a guy you roll out a whole bunch. He doesn't do that. He doesn't move that well. So he's a bit hard to nail down. I have a tendency to think, and I can't remember the guy's name. Gosh, it was a Houston guy. He ended up being just like a backup quarterback. Anyway, Houston Texans, but he feels like a guy that you get on your team. If you were pressed into starting him, he could do okay for you for a 4 or 5 game stretch, and you might think you have something. And then if you give him a longer audition, you realize he's just not. He doesn't do things well enough or quick enough to be an NFL guy.
He looks, when you look like you're confused and flustered and you lose all your poise once you get a little bit of rush, which is going to happen in the NFL, even if you have a really good offensive line, it's hard to find long-term success. So when I said there's 5 guys and Shough is one of those guys, it's like he's got the arm and he can make the right decisions at the right time, but it's 50-50.
Yeah. There's like elements of Nick Foles, you know what I mean, to his game.
Oh, I like that kind.
There, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's stuff like that because he's big, he's tall, he's got a good arm. But Foles moved better than him. And I feel like he was quicker. So I mean that like if this guy had quicker feet or a quicker delivery, I'd feel a lot better about him. So maybe some of that stuff can be cleaned up and then he can end up working out as a Nick Foles type of guy who was really like a borderline backup quarterback starter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And what worries me about Shough as well is like what he needs to clean up in that category. Like you said, I don't know if he has the poise to do that, because a lot of times when you have here's a problem. He's 26. So his release and his throwing mechanism, his mechanics are so set in. The moment he gets, you can sit there and coach him and coach him and coach him. The moment he gets flustered, he is very, very likely to go back into that mechanics that he's so used to and make those same mistakes. And that's his problem. Like that's his Achilles heel. I don't think he has the time to work it all out. So that being said,
I can't remember.
The more I talk about him, I was like, yeah, maybe I would just take Milroe.
I
hear like he might get good draft capital. That's the only thing that really excites me about him.
I can't remember who said it, and so I can't give credit or anything. But this isn't like an original thought. But that's all I wanted. Somebody once said that when you're pressured, you fall back onto who you really are.
Yeah.
And if you're a baller, when you're pressured, you ball out.
Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
The king of.
Exactly. And there's other guys that when they're pressured, they fall apart. And you can train that out of yourself in normal situations and be good in normal situations. But in the NFL, you can only hide from pressure for so long. That's going to be pressure. And that's when your true colors are going to show. And that's when if at the quarterback position, if you fall apart, you could get a look, you can get a sniff in the NFL, but once they figure out that you can't handle that, then you're Sam Darnold. And then you got to really swim upstream. And this dude's 25, going to be 26. He doesn't have time to swim upstream and kind of reset his whole entire career and get in the, you know what I mean? Like he'll be done. He'll be flushed.
And who are the two best quarterbacks that are in this draft? Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward. When under pressure, they don't panic and they deliver. Shadur Sanders, excellent poise. And, well, I think he's like college football's all-time accurate quarterback as well. He's over 70%. Yeah, he's 71%, I believe. So, Tyler Shough.
What the Shough, you know?
Yeah, what the Shough? I mean,
somebody had to say it.
He's on my board. So in the right side, like I would gamble on a Superflex league in the hopes that he gets like a chance at some point. I could trade him for a second. And I would
gamble on him if everything worked out perfect and there was a path. You know what I mean? Like if he got the right kind of capital and there was a path. Otherwise, I'm passing because he's older and he's got a lot to work.
He's got to go in the second round. He's got to go to a place where there's a path of opportunity. Because you're right. Because there's not. He's off the board completely. Yep. All right. Next on the board here we have Seth Henigan, quarterback out of Memphis, 6'3", 215 pounds. And,
don't you have a read to do?
Oh, I do have a read to do. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, you bet.
Oh, what quarter? How many did we do?
Well, we did 4 so far.
Okay, so I'm a little late on this read. About our friends over at myffpc.com. That's right, myffpc.com. Still got some orphans out there, folks. Ooh. And you go out there, get $25 off if you use the promo code NERDS. We talk about myffpc.com every single show. And the reason we do is because there's not really a better place that you could play Dynasty Fantasy Football. You might feel like there's an equal place too, but none are going to offer you the security of myffpc.com. It's why they have these orphans right now that are available, where you can go in, you can find the Tri, Superflex, the RotoViz ones, Standard, PPR. They have everything that that would fit your bill as a Dynasty.
I'm kind of interested in that Triflex, dude.
It's pretty crazy.
It's a Tri Superflex, right? Like so you get.
I think you know what? Ask me next time when I go back in and read it because I know because RotoViz does it. So
okay.
Patrick, Kurtis Patrick over there set all those ones up. So
we'll go either way. Go check it out. It sounds intriguing.
It's very intriguing. And the biggest thing I offer you, they've been operating since 2010 and they've never had a league fold, right? And you can go in there and you can build your team how you want to see fit and have the confidence that league is going to be there. Like I just saw somebody post the other day where their 7-year home league just folded and they had an awesome roster. And it sucks, right? Now, and it works both ways. It doesn't just suck when you build this awesome roster and the league folds. At least then, like you won some money. It sucks even worse when you trade away all your future first and then the league folds. You're like, well, dude, we
were in a league last year that almost blew up, and I had just done that. I'd started shipping off all my assets. I was building for the future, and then the league almost folded. It did not. Thankfully.
So my FFPC, you got that going for you. The guaranteed to get paid out. You have paid GMs out there. Go out, check them out. myffpc.com. They don't have the new leagues opening yet. You're still buying orphans, but if there's not something there for you, don't worry. We'll talk about them in the future too. We're going to talk about them all year long. But the reason they've been advertising with us, and again, we are very selective. We're fortunate enough to be selective on who our advertising partners are.
Yep.
So we only work with people that we feel confident in. Yep. And I don't have more confidence than Alex and the team over there at myffpc.com. Check them out. You make sure you use that promo code NERDS, and you get $25 off your first team.
Nice.
Now we can talk about Seth Henigan, quarterback out of Memphis. I would rather have $25 off my
FFPC, Rich.com.
And this is somebody, when I watched him play, I mean, 4-year player again. He
50 starts.
Yeah, and if you look at stats, like he piles those up, right? Like he's
3502 as far as passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 64.8% of his passes.
Good deep ball.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes. Yeah. Everything is kind of sometimes with him, though, right?
I mean, dude, he's got his arms not strong at all.
He's listed, I think, at 6'3", 200. Is that right?
I have him down here 6'3", 215.
Okay, well.
So
I mean, I think, one site will say this, another site will say that. I think looking at him, 6'3", 215 sounds better than the 6'3", 200 because that tends to be wiry. He didn't look super wiry, but he's not a jacked like big guy.
He's a little wiry.
Like Shough. He's not a guy like Shough. You know what I mean? Like you could see him and he's like that guy. That's a big, strong guy.
He's got small hands. He is a little wiry. Played at Memphis. You expect guys that play at like these kind of schools to like look really good. He's look pedestrian.
So this is a weird one for me because there were times when he did look good, and if you were to watch a highlight tape of this guy, I bet you the highlight tape would look good.
He's I 100% agree with that.
But if you're watching every single game and you're watching the all 22 tape of him, it's very inconsistent. He'll just flat miss a guy. Actually, quite often. It felt like when the game that I watched that was all 22, because I think we did only have one game in our library.
We just added I think like 3 more games.
Oh, okay.
I went back and watched one.
That must have just happened.
Like yesterday.
I was gonna say like between me refreshing my page the other day.
Yeah, I think because we told the boys over there in the film room like, hey, we're talking these quarterbacks, so they went in and added like 50 games. Most of them were quarterbacks.
Gosh.
A lot of them the guys we're talking about here.
Okay,
so
I wish I would have known that.
We have multiple games in there. And I think Seth Henigan, we added like 3 games to it.
Okay, well, the one game that I watched of him that was our tape, he was just very inconsistent. And then I went on YouTube and I'm watching what I could find was only like highlight reels of this guy. And those looked much better. And so there are good aspects to his game. The short to intermediate stuff for the most part is pretty good. I think most guys get a little bit more erratic on the deep balls. So,
he's vanilla as vanilla gets, man.
He is. I mean, I don't know. Like he
doesn't seem like he's not going to make something happen.
Agreed. And there's times when there'll be something there and he'll just miss a throw. That's what drives me crazy about guys. You know what I mean? Like you got to make the 5-yard throw, the 5-yard check down that's just right over the offensive line to your back that's just sitting there. You know what I mean? Like you can't miss that throw.
Yeah, don't throw into crazy double coverage. I saw one of those as well.
Well, yeah, there's some times with that as well.
So, I mean, overall, man, this is when I said out of the 6 guys we're going to talk about, like 5 out of 6, like I'm okay with. Like I'm all out on Seth Henigan. I don't see any.
Well, I think the good news is, I don't think the NFL is going to see him as anything more than a backup option as well. So I don't think he's a guy that we're going to have to worry much about. I think if he gets drafted, it will be pretty late.
Agreed.
So, he's going to come into the league. He's going to be a third guy on a depth chart. And, those guys typically are the guys that bounce up and down from practice squad. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, and that's kind of where he's going to be. If he progresses and becomes more, I think, just not even, he just needs to be consistent. If he becomes less inconsistent, he could be a backup option. I don't think he's either way.
I just don't see an NFL arm.
Yeah, either way, I don't think he's like much as far as NFL talent goes.
All right, last guy.
Kurtis Rourke from Indiana. He spent 5 years at Ohio University. Well, it used to be Ohio University. Now it's just Ohio. And
they got rid of University OU?
At some point they did. It's just Ohio now.
It's not OU, huh?
from what I've seen.
Okay. All right.
And if I remember correctly.
All right. Well, your wife went there.
She did. And then this past season, he went to Indiana. Obviously, this past year was pretty good there. Indiana kind of came out of nowhere. In 12 games, he completed 69.4% of his passes, 3,042 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, 5 interceptions.
On a torn ACL, I believe.
He had a torn ACL?
I swear I have a note here that he had a torn ACL. Coming off an ACL tear.
Okay.
Oh, he's coming off an ACL tear.
Coming off an ACL tear. So he must have had one last year at some point, and maybe play through it last year.
Yeah, I see it. And I'm looking here, I'm going through another note, and it says here that he's coming off an ACL tear. My note here says that he played with a torn ACL.
Wow. Remember Phillip Rivers did that?
I do.
Yeah, he just had like a brace on.
The brace on it. Yeah. I'm not I have two different notes. Like I double checked with somebody else too, because I think Lance. I'm gonna go Lance Zierlein because that guy knows what he's talking about.
Heck yeah. Well,
Lance Zierlein. Yeah, it says right here. Lance Zierlein has Rourke. This is his draft overview of Rourke. Rourke earns a draftable grade because of his size, experience, and production. He's coming off an ACL tear, but injury may not have a major impact on his draft and slot since his game isn't built on mobility.
Which it's not. I mean, it's...
And in my notes, I wrote down that he played through.
Interesting.
Which means I had to read it in multiple places for me to put my actual notes of my film study. So I thought that was pretty crazy. He played on torn ACL. So I apologize for interrupting you.
No worries, man. I mean, he basically threw the Indiana program up on his shoulders, right? This year they brought in new coaches and all that kind of stuff. They came out of nowhere to be a ranked team and all that good stuff.
Real good game against UCLA.
Yeah. You watched the Ohio State game. It did not look good. He was 8 of 18 for 68 yards. So that game in particular is, I don't want to say, is that an indicator of how he'll be in the NFL? Because he saw a lot of pressure in that game. He did not look great and only threw for 68 yards. And I think he did not finish that game though.
And he moved.
If memory serves me.
I remember he shucked a defender in that game as well versus Ohio State. And again, all of it, I just literally went blank here. A little bit more impressive, like if he did play with the ACL, because my big thing is like he's not mobile at all, but he can't run if he just have he's torn ACL.
No, but I think he throws the ball well. He's not a guy that is uninteresting, right? He's a little bit older. He is 24. He'll be 25 in October. But this is like a classic guy that feels like a backup quarterback in the NFL. I honestly don't have his measurements, which, obviously we're going to get all that stuff.
I have 6'5", 225.
Yeah, but I thought he was bigger. Obviously we're going to get, all these things nailed down shortly, but do you see anything here in Rourke that can be anything more than a backup quarterback in the NFL?
I don't see it, but he also has that old school, typical 6'5" pocket passer.
Yeah.
Obviously a tough kid for what he did. Took Indiana back into the game. Real strong arm. So
between him and Shough, who do you like better? I think Rourke
goes in a better situation.
No, I know. Yeah. No, but
Rourke's younger.
Rourke's a little bit younger. They're both pretty old. Dude.
Yeah.
It's 24, 25 right now, 20, and it's going to be 25, 26.
He doesn't turn the ball over, which is nice.
The thing that I like about him is he's not as his delivery's not there's no issue there, you know what I mean? And he's not a slow-footed guy.
Yeah.
Where Shough kind of is. So Rourke, for me, is an interesting guy, but still, I see both of those guys, Shough and Rourke, as backup options in the NFL.
I do too.
So it's going to take a lot, I think, for those guys to kind of overcome and find themselves in a situation where they're starting. And even if they did, I don't think it'd be long term. I think for sure both those guys are kind of borderline at best starter backup guys. And at worst, just planted as a QB2 for their entire career.
I don't see just an NFL. So I think his release isn't as quick as I'd like it.
And the pressure I saw him take against Ohio State and kind of his reaction to that is somewhat worrisome to me, just because that's the kind of stuff that, especially as a young quarterback in the NFL, that's what's going to get thrown at you. You're going to have to deal with a lot of pressure, and the way you deal with pressure, we mentioned it earlier, is kind of is how you're going to be. So I don't know, that one's hard for me to shake.
I didn't love I feel like his accurate, I think let me look at his completion percentage. He completed 73% of his passes this year, but at the same time, I didn't love his ball placement was just okay. Didn't really didn't put his receivers in position to win a lot either. For after the play, you saw I got some balls batted down, some broken up passes out there as well.
And for 6'5", you got to be.
Yeah. So to me, listen, Kurtis Rourke to me just falls in a category of seeing. We've been doing this 11 years. I've been watching football 45. I've seen 1,000 Kurtis Rourkes in college football.
Agreed. I think
usually 999 of those guys don't work out.
What makes it hard, I think, is because all these guys have got a ton of games, and this is another guy, 48 games. So there's a certain polish to those kind of guys that looks good on tape. You know what I mean? But you have to be able to distinguish, does this guy have any more upside, which is hard to, I think, project for Rourke. I don't see him. He's not a guy that makes everyone better. He's not a guy that has a lot of room to grow and as a player. So that's where I have a hard time kind of projecting him as anything more than.
And it's a lot of these guys. We know we have a lot of these guys fall into that category of they have the starts to get in. What they are, right? You talk about Shough. He's been playing for 6 years. There's somebody who had 56 starts, 59 starts. These guys have the starts under their belt. A lot of these guys are who they kind of are.
Yeah.
And some of them, like I said, you'll see the statistics, right? Same thing. Rourke has the statistics you like. Henigan has the statistics you like. It's because these guys are men against boys at this point in their senior years playing.
That's funny. I had that in my Shough my Shough note.
Yeah,
that he's literally a man against boys,
and that means. I mean, I know it's great. It means something. It'd be like a senior in high school playing against an 8th grade team, right? You expect him to carve him up because he's got all those reps under his belt, so the stats are there.
Yep.
But the game is so much more faster and so much more mental at the next level, and a lot of these guys do have some problems under pressure, and that really, like you said before, in your quote was saying these are the guys you see what you really have. And when I see a lot of these guys are very good college football quarterbacks, but not NFL quarterbacks. And more importantly, which is what I'm looking for, is fantasy football quarterbacks. Somebody who can be better. I know the stat I give out there is top 55 overall player at quarterback 18. I feel good about a top 18 quarterback. I don't want quarterback 24. I don't want quarterback 25. Right. I don't want quarterback 26. More important. So, and
it starts getting ugly at that point. Yeah.
And right now, we've had over the last couple of years, definitely after this 24 class, we've had a good influx of good quarterbacks coming in the league. You know what I mean?
We have, but we've also had guys like Aiden O'Connell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
who is, I think, a perfect example of a guy like this that's finding a way to a job, but at the same time, he's not having true success. He's not having fantasy success. And they're looking to replace him. You know what I mean? You're constantly looking to replace a guy like that.
Will Levis.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's even a higher draft pick. I'm talking because Kurtis Rourke, who knows, he could end up in the 4th round.
Yeah.
And he could end up looking okay in an offense because he's had so many starts and he's had so much experience. Yeah. But he's kind of tapped out right there. You know what I mean? He's just not going to get better.
Aiden O'Connell is a perfect example, right? Gets in there, gets a starter, because they have nothing else going on. He's good enough. Tyler Shough's a good example of they ain't O'Connell, right? And getting there, the Gardner Minshew's of the world, guys that are a little bit more mobile. They're a little bit more mobile than Tyler Shough. The Gardner, they can get out there. You'll have those, and then of course, again, I don't want to use him as an example because Brock Purdy's such an outlier.
Perfect situation.
But, perfect situation, and it could possibly work. But right now, this quarterback is every NFL scout out there. All the major analysts are saying how weak this quarterback class is. Keep that in mind. It really is. So our job is to cover the opportunity and steer you where to go and kind of completely stay away from.
But what we're dealing with is mostly backup quarterbacks.
Yeah. You're going to be drafting a lot of running backs and a lot of tight ends in this draft class. And some receivers. Like out of the little receiver tape I have already seen, like there's 5 guys I like pretty solidly. I've already when you watch these quarterbacks,
did you see what Andrew Berry said about?
I did see that Travis Hunter. Yeah,
he saw him as a wide receiver.
They view Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, which I wonder how their GMs say that. But like when you watch these quarterbacks, like you don't really get any like running back play unless they dump a pass off. But for the most part, once they even complete the play's over, like you can see some of these guys. So like watching Quinn Ewers, I see Matthew Golden.
Yep,
like, that's a really nice receiver. Watching Will Howard, not only gets you see Jeremiah Smith, but you get to watch Emeka Egbuka.
I'm starting to appreciate Emeka Egbuka even more than I did when he was there at Ohio State and I was watching him every week.
Me too. Yep. Just sure-handed.
Yep.
Very good route. Like his ceiling's Keenan Allen.
Professional wide receiver. And somebody like, as of right now, I feel very good about drafting my dynasty team. And you're going to get some good value on him. So I haven't, obviously there's no Arizona quarterback that I watched. I didn't even watch any Ted McMillan. But I tell you, after watching this tape, I felt I came away with like, ooh, Matthew Golden and Emeka Egbuka. Like they both look really good. Yeah, no doubt.
And I'll tell you what, Will Howard did Emeka favors. Quinn Ewers, not so much. But let's talk about him tomorrow, shall we?
We shall. Adios.
Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds has an incredible new offer from Underdog Fantasy for new customers. When you sign up as a new customer, you'll get a chance at their new customer free pick. But that's not all. Underdog is also offering incredible deposit bonuses. Use the promo code NERDS when you first sign up, and Underdog will give you up to $1,000 in bonus cash with your first deposit. That's right, $1,000 to kickstart your fantasy football journey. Don't miss out on this fantastic opportunity. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up today with promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. And in Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.